Hey there, Sabres. We are going to drill down to a very basic level to talk about stabilization of our recording devices. I feel like I've looked past this and I want to address it so that you understand it at a most basic level. Phone stabilization, tripods of all sorts, they almost all use a standardized thread or mounting opening, and that is a 1/4-20 thread. 1/4-20, what does that mean? Well, we are in front of the bolt bin here. This is what you'd find at a hardware store. And there are all different types of bolts, from regular hex head bolts. This is a 1/2-13 hex head bolt, which means it's a 1/2 inch diameter, 13 threads in every inch along the axis. That's the pitch of it. 1/4-20 is a common bolt that you will find in the hardware stores, but it's universal for mounting and fastening when it comes to stabilization of all kinds of devices. This is a chart here that has every possible configuration of standard bolt sizes, like 1/4-20, which is the coarse thread version, and 1/4-28, which is the fine thread version. 1/4-20 should accept this 1/4-20 bolt here, which it does. And then we have metric threads as well. Anytime we see anything that's got a opening for accepting a bolt that involves audio video, it's almost always going to be 1/4-20. I want you to understand and internalize that. In the case of the smartphone mount, 1/4-20. This is going to thread into the bottom. Now you might have some kind of a knurled knob that would hold on to this, and if you lose that, you can replace these. Thumb screws can often be used. In this case, we do have some knobs, clamping and bar, and in here we've got a 1/4-20 by 9/16 length, 1.5 inch diameter knob. So same 1/4-20 pitch on here. We could thread this on the bottom through a tripod opening. The stud may be too long. The only problem with this is it may bottom out, or the depth of these is only so deep. You would see that it would run into the top here. So if I demonstrate, this will spin freely until it bottoms out in that hole right there. And if my thickness of my base plate for my tripod is thicker, not as thick as that, it won't hold solid. Okay, so it's one other consideration. But I want you to lock that in. 1/4-20 thread is always the standard for any type of mounting, base plates, tripods. The bottom of every camera, DSLR or video camera, is going to have 1/4-20 female threads in it. Are you recording?
Yes.
Are you recording?
Yes.
Okay, good. This is 1/4-20 101, base plate tripod mounting. I think we look past this and I see problems with this all the time. So let's look at what can happen if you do this wrong. First of all, these are some older cameras that we have, prosumer level, we would call them. Really close. Come on in, Ava. Look at that, if you can see how that's bowed out or cracked here. This is from over tightening the screw for the base plate. So if we try and crank that down too much, we can actually pull that insert out and crack the whole housing of the camera. In this case, this has all been cracked out and it's damaged. So that is to not over tighten the base plate. Under tightening the base plate is what I'm seeing more frequently, and that is the camera's like flopping around up there because it's not tight to the bottom of the base plate, and it's a dangerous situation. So our base plates are standardized for Manfrotto, meaning you can buy a replacement base plate and it will go into almost any Manfrotto or Bogen tripod, which is what we have. A few features on here. There's an indent, a brass indent that locks into the bottom of the camera. It goes into that hole right there, which keeps it from swiveling. Then there is the 1/4-20 stud that goes into our insert in the camera. So we're going to line those two up, and then we want to tighten this up. This has to be tightened just past finger tight, what we would call snug. If you use your thumbnail, you can get it pretty tight. I would say it needs to go a little bit further than that. And if you're really self-conscious of this, ask me and I'll help you. If that doesn't fit in there, you can use a quarter or any other flat object like a key will work as well. Keep in mind a key is a lever, so how tight? Good, right there. Now I'm not quite straight with the camera, which bothers me. I'm neurotic, so we could always turn the tripod a little more, but let's get that lined up. One other feature here, this button bumper. If we take that open our quarter 20 can slide out of there and get lost. We do have replacements. So this is an example of a replacement that would fit in there and function the same. Normally that should stay in and closed. And I'm gonna tighten this up or make sure that I've got it good now. The lens is in the right direction for the camera. That's also important. And to put this on, we have two options here. One option on our more basic tripods is actually an easier option. There is a releasing lever on the side that is the tensioner for once we get our base plate in there. But we can, if this is loose enough or counterclockwise enough, not too far, don't unthread it, please. We can lever this down and take a look up top here, come at the top angle if you can. If we lever that down and it flushes out with this, we can actually just set the base plate in like this, and then it will lock back in. We still have to tighten up this thumb screw, and now it can't slide fore and aft. Let me tighten up the tilt lock here. It can't slide fore and aft. If I loosen this, it can slide fore and aft, but it's got some fail safes in there so that it doesn't slide off. That's a lock, right, each way. I want to find a balance point here. I'm gonna have to go back as far as I can so that it doesn't want to tip forward. It's gonna be as far back as it can. Then I'm gonna lock that in, okay? Now I'd have to lock my tilt control as well because it's front heavy. Loosen, push this down, and I can release it off of there. On the other tripod mounts, these are our fluid tilt pans, which are a little more expensive, a little higher end tripod heads. Putting this off and on is a little different, okay? So first of all, there is a thumb screw here that if this is all the way tightened in, we're not going to be able to get the camera on there. It needs to come out a ways. There is a wing, if you come over this way. That wing is going to start showing up. Hold still. See, that wing is what locks ultimately, so we have to have that wing open, but not too far. We don't want to unthread that all the way. In this case, we slide on from the back, and there is a button right here. This is our releasing button. So we are going to put lens forward. I'm going to tip up like this. We're going to line up the V's or the dovetail, that's what that is. Slide this forward until it clicks. And now we have that same fail-safe where it can't slide off the front, can't slide off the back. And we would lock it where it is best balanced using our side screw right here. So now my camera is locked in, and my tilt and pan are pretty stiff. So we'll go over how to change all that in the next portion of this. But the last part of this is, how do I get the camera off now that I've got this on here? I have to loosen my set screw to allow it to slide, and then I'm going to push in this release. So come over here. It actually says R on top, which is for release. So I'll push that release in. Once I get, and it's actually weird, I can't do it here, right? I have to let it go inside here, and then I push the release in, and that's going to let the camera come off the back. It's the only way it goes off and on. Okay. Just one other note I can't emphasize enough. Quarter 20, it's all standardized. That quarter 20 is the same quarter 20 as our tripod mounts, Osmos, GoPros, everything's quarter 20. That's the standard. See. Recording?
Yes.
Are you recording?
Yes.
Okay, good. This is Tripod 101. So we have talked through how to properly attach a camera or recording device using a base plate to a camera. John, you want to grab that camera off the ledge there? That's all good. What we need to talk about is how we can control the tripod to provide stabilization while also giving us the tilt and pan functions that we want. Okay, I'm going to load this up on here, lock it in so it cannot slide, and then we'll talk about the more complex of the two tripods first. So first of all, how to extend legs properly. Okay, normally if we have this and we're in the field and this is attached, we can walk around like this, or hold it here by the neck safely. Come on up with me, Aiden. Or over the shoulder as well. Okay, these are all options for carrying, and they're safe. When we get to somewhere where we need to set the tripod up, we're always going to extend the bottom legs first. Now, if you can see this, I'm going to open them up just a little bit so they are parallel with each other. Then I'm going to open up the bottom clips first. The reason I do this is because if I open the top leg first, then I've got to reach all the way down here to open the bottom leg. So make it easy on yourself. Extend the bottom ones first. Be careful not to rocket these things out or really jerk on them, because there's a tab in here that holds them in and it's just plastic. Once those pop out of there, it's involved to repair them. So now I can extend my upper legs, and on these full-size tripods, they're pretty tall to start. You extend these 3 legs till they lock out. Come in close to this, Aiden. There is a lockout here that extends to a given angle. It's a default or detent. All 3 of them will reach that, and then it's going to be really close to level when you start. If for some reason you're on uneven ground and you need to extend one further, you can pull this down, and this will extend all the way out, pin against the wall, whatever. You've got some options here, okay? But if you come in close and watch this, there's a ratchet and pawl that has a number of detents there. And that first detent, that primary one, is where we want to start. The last thing is there's going to be a telescoping head that's an option 2. That is a set screw right here where the legs come together. Loosen that. We can telescope this up or down, depending on the height of our subject, if we want to get eye level. Our tilt and pan handle, let's talk about that a little bit. This is serrated here. There's teeth inside here. We have to loosen that enough counterclockwise whenever we want to loosen, counterclockwise, in order to get our pan handle and our tilt handle at the angle that we want. Maybe we get on location and it's easier now. This thing's big, right? So traveling with it out is harder. And tighten that up, that's good. Last thing on this tripod is to set the friction control of our pan and our tilt. And on the higher end tripods, there is a tilt lock, which is going to be right here. If I crank this down, I'm sorry, it's a pan lock. Edit, dang it. There is a pan lock, and that pan lock is gonna keep this thing from not panning, okay? So right here, I have to turn this counterclockwise until it's loose. The friction control for pan is right here, and it's a fluid drag system, which means there's actually like liquid in here that makes it smoother. If I want to go very little resistance, I turn this to the negative, and now I'm going to have a very free floating pan, okay? If I want more fluid resistance, for whatever reason, I crank this down. I can crank this down tight and lock it out, but know that there's 2 independent systems that control panning. And guess what? There's 2 independent systems that control tilting as well. There is the tilt lock right here. If I crank this down, it's not gonna tilt. I wanna have that pretty much off while I'm using it. I wanna have it on while I'm in travel or moving, okay? Meaning like I'm going from location to location. So I'm gonna turn that off, and then I will spin around, and now we've got our fluid drag system for the tilt control as well. Turn this counterclockwise or to the negative, and I'm gonna have a very free floating tilt. Normally, we're going to lock out our tilt on a given angle, and then we're pretty much panning to cover action. Sometimes we need to tilt to cover action as well, or both, okay? And that's where we want to learn to be as fluid as possible. So now I've got, and when I say fluid, it's not like a play on words, like this is a fluid head. And fluid means very smooth, controlled movements. So we want to start and accelerate to a given speed and then slow down. Something we can practice and actually get good at. Now that we're all set up, okay, tearing down, we're gonna lock out our tilt. I'm gonna lock my pan a little bit or tighten it up. I can bring my legs together. And this is where I would go in reverse. Flip, 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 and up. Oh, I should do them both. Flip, 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 all the way up. Then lock everything in. I can tilt this forward and lock it if I want, whatever is easiest to carry, okay? I do want to show you this tripod as well. I know this is getting long. This is just a simpler version of the same, but on these tripods, there is only this knob here for pan control, and there's only the tilt lock for tilt control. They still have a fluid head, okay? It's still a fluid drag system, but there's no secondary control to control the friction of that, okay? Otherwise, this tripod works relatively the same. It does have a telescoping head to go up and down. We've just got a phone mount on here. Phone mounts, we have 2 different types, spring-loaded, and this one is a threaded style, so we want to loosen this up until it fits our phone. We would slip our phone in here and then tighten that down. Don't thread it out all the way because this falls apart and we lose these spacers. An even easier version of that one is our last one, which is our spring-loaded one. Now these may be total no-brainer, but I go like this in, lock it in place, okay? Up, down. Oh, check this out, these little minis. push the button, it releases the ball and socket so we can recenter or level. See,